Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to our coffee times to talk about horror. And today I'm here to talk to you about horror books, specifically horror books and thrillers that are coming out in the month of July.
It's coffee time!
This is one of the videos that I love to do the most because I get to see what's coming out, which books I need to pre-order. My bank account doesn't like it so much, but you know, sometimes sacrifices need to be made in order for me to be happy as a book reader. And July, I'm sadly to report, it comes packed with new releases. So I'm sorry in advance for whatever might happen to your Amazon card, bank account, whatever, because July comes strong. Today I have 42 different titles, and those include, YA, adult, mystery thrillers, as well as horror books. So hopefully there's something here for you guys. And yeah, without further ado, because the list is kind of long, let's get started. Also, please keep in mind that these release dates are the ones that I have found on Goodreads or on Amazon, but they might be different depending on the country that you live in. We're going to start with YA mystery thrillers, and the first one is called This Is Where We Die by Cindy RX, and this is a YA mystery thriller. 8 friends went on a trip, but only 6 came back. I already love the sound of that. Now, a killer has just one night to make sure that the 6 survivors pay for what they did. So the plan is to kill the 6 people in one night. Again, sounds great to me. 2 years ago, a bunch of friends went on a ski trip, and from the 8 people that went originally on the trip, only 6 of them came back. That was 2 years ago, and nobody recalls exactly what happened, which is very weird, but apparently one of the kids' parents has connections, so they kind of made the whole thing go away. But somebody knows what happened, and that person is ready to kill the 6 survivors for revenge. I believe they are invited to a mansion in an isolated island, and they are incommunicated with society, and I'm pretty sure probably the person that wants to kill them is the one that got them there in just one place so that they can kill them in just one night because they have nowhere to run. So, isolated setting, revenge, secrets. It sounds great. The next YA mystery thriller is called All for the Game, and it is by Heather Buchta. In Texas, football is life. Everybody loves football. But Finn sees football as a way to get out of this town, as a way to make a bit of future for himself. What he wants is to get a scholarship so that he's able to go to college and leave. Finn's girlfriend starts to notice that some of the rival players are disappearing. They're not showing up for games and stuff like that, and she starts to investigate, which leads her to get herself in trouble because she realizes somebody seems to be watching her, following her. More things are happening in Finn's life, and at some point he needs to make a choice, like just go live his life with his scholarship and football, or does he stay in town and try to solve all of these mysteries, all of these secrets. This seems like a more of a low-key mystery thriller. I think the first one that I mentioned is has a little bit more horror in it in a way, because obviously people are going to potentially be killed because somebody's out for revenge, and 2 friends perished already in that trip. So I think this one is a little bit more mild in that regard. It's more of a mystery thriller and has a little bit less of, kills. But sometimes those are also really nice to read. I think especially if you love cheerleaders and football and all of that culture, this book might appeal to you. We are going now to some adult horror, and the first one is one that I'm really excited about. It's called My Ex, the Antichrist by Cray DeLuy, and this is a horror thriller. It is 2010, and Lily is at the peak of her stardom, but one day she decides to walk into a police station and she confesses to a murder. In the present time, Lily is with her band and they're touring, and she is not willing to talk about what happened 10 years ago and whatever she said and confessed to 10 years ago. But at some point, Lily agrees to an interview. She's like, okay, it's been a decade now, maybe I should talk about it. I think this is kind of like a story about love, lost things, the apocalypse, and it promises to be epic. I really enjoyed episode 13 by Cray DeLuy. I still have to read his the previous book about the horror movie. I do own a copy, so I really want to read it. But I think he's one of those authors that probably is going to always hit the mark for me. I don't know, there's something about episode 13 that kind of gave me the impression that he might be an author I always want to return to. So I'm really excited about this one. Keeping up with adult horror, we have The Nature of Demons by J.D. Carmichael. A supernatural force spreads across the globe and is turning human beings into maniacs, into aggressive people, and it's spreading so fast that it seems unstoppable. There are some people that manage to survive, but now they find themselves in a world where there is basically mad monsters out there. Even the people that survived, like Jacob, they have realized that something inside of them has changed forever. He also has powers that he cannot understand himself. So The Nature of Demons is basically a story of survival. This one has quite heavy and a long list of content warnings, so check that out if you want to make sure this is a book for you. We're going back to YA, but we have YA horror fantasy, and our next book is called Chasing Moonflowers by Pauline Cho. In 1925, in colonial Hong Kong, a young girl witnesses a murder that is committed by a creature. Our main character is Ling, and she is a herbalist. When her uncle is falsely accused of this crime, Ling knows that she's the only one that can find the creature and can get to the bottom of it, so she can, free her uncle. She teams up with her private academy best friend, and they're trying to uncover all of the secrets. So there's a lot of fantasy in this one, but it's also a horror story with a creature. So it kind of blends historical fantasy with some gothic horror, some family drama, so it has a lot to offer. Back to adult psychological horror, we have now Death Trip by Matthew A. Clark. Amy is recovering from a very, very bad breakup, and she ends up kind of getting into alcohol and drugs and, leading a bad life. And at one party, somebody dies, and that kind of makes her think about a lot of things, a lot of choices in her life. 6 friends appear to be marked for death, and nothing can stop them from dying. Something is coming for them. Amy and her friends must face the reality of their actions before it is too late. The next book is horror fiction, and it is called Come Knocking by Mike Bokoven. When Come Knocking is a theater production company that when it first got to LA, it was very popular. There were long lines of people waiting to get there. Everybody, that was like the hot spot. Everybody wanted a ticket to go there. However, one night, 12 people were killed and hundreds were injured, and the whole nation wondered, how could this happen? As the story is kind of getting cold and people are starting to forget about it, there is a reporter that is being hired to investigate the secrets of what actually happened that night. He needs to figure out what happened during that massacre, so he performs interviews with the survivors and investigates everything about the place, the owners, what the theater was doing, and this sounds amazing to me. I actually really love this idea. Guys, I love when there is a reporter or somebody investigating and they are trying to, get interviews and paperwork, and they're putting everything together to see what happened in a massacre. I don't know, there's something about that that always intrigues me, and it's one of those things that I love to see in books. I love investigations. I love it so much. So this sounds really good to me right now. Our next book is a short horror story compilation, and it is called Odd Boy Stories by Rose Keating. This particular collection kind of digs deeper into the weirdness of our bodies, and I think you can expect this one to be very visceral and a little bit weird. This is a debut collection, and it also touches on the topics of sex, shame, and womanhood, and you get here 10 different short stories. The next book is a horror fantasy gothic, and it is called Grave Birds by Dana Elmendorf. Grave birds haunt the cemeteries, and this particular breed of birds are birds that are kind of letting the ghosts know that they have unfinished business in this realm. So one of the characters that we follow is actually somebody that died and came back as a ghost. That is Holly's Sutherland, and she woke up at a cemetery, figured out she was dead, and she was able to see these birds, and that meant that she had unfinished business. On top of that, there is a mysterious stranger that comes to town, and since he arrived, there's a lot of weird things happening in this town, and everybody seems to be under this guy's influence, possibly including Holly's. And the grave birds start to show Holly's the real story of the place, and she starts to learn a lot of secrets. I really like this concept. I like that if you die and you have unfinished business, you realize you're a ghost and you see these birds and you know, there's something that I still have to do before I can find peace, let's say. So I like the concept, and this one sounds like a kind of like eerie, spooky tale, but it also has some fantasy to it. The next one is kind of a mix of genres. It is sci-fi, thriller, horror, and also dystopia, and it's called The Quiet by Barnaby Martin. Isaac is Hannah's entire world, and she knows that her son is gifted. She knows that she has to protect him, and she never leaves his side. She's always trying to protect him from absolutely everything. She thinks that the moment she leaves him alone for just 1 second, they're gonna take him. We live in a world where the heat has become so deadly that people basically leave during the night because they cannot withstand the heat during the day. And this is like a phenomenon that happened almost overnight. And Hannah is a researcher that has been trying to figure out how to stop it and how it happened. After spending her entire career studying this, now her only goal in life is to keep her son Isaac safe. And from this interesting horror story, we move to a mystery thriller. It is called The Forever House by Lisa Stone. Jasmine moves to a new house with her husband and her 2 daughters. She's really excited about the new beginning, but obviously, as we know, when they get into the house, they realize that there is something wrong with it. There is sudden drops in temperature, there is swarm of insects, there's plants that are dying for no explanation in the house, so it almost feels like somebody doesn't want them there. So obviously our main character is going to question if she and her family are safe in this house or not. And we have yet another psychological horror this month coming out, and it is called The Phoebe Experiment by MJ Mars. We have an experiment that goes wrong, a survivor under suspicion, and a teenager that is conducting an investigation. Nala finds kind of peace in true crime stories, so she's obsessed with them, and she has a YouTube channel about it as well. And one day, while she's researching cases, she comes across an experiment where multiple teenagers died. It was just a sleep experiment in the 2000s, so why did people die here? She's also really shocked when she discovers that the sole survivor of this experiment is actually one of her teachers. So she creates a video that kind of goes viral and obviously puts him on the suspect list. I really like this concept as well. I love stories about experiments and to figure out what happened in that specific experiment. I don't mind if, it's told from the present time or if we go back to discover what happened, but things about experiments always kind of make me really interested to find out what happened, so this is one that I also have on my list. And another psychological horror is Good to Grave by Michael Park. I think we're getting a lot of psychological horror in July, and I'm here for it. Josie is going for an interview for a really good job in New York that she really wants to get, and when she's in the interview, she realizes that the person interviewing her is weird. There's something weird about that person because that person's shadow is moving before the person moves. So like, what the hell? So Josie, of course, wants to work there and wants to figure out what's going on with these people. She starts to kind of investigate the CEO and discovers things about this company that she has decided to join. She discovers the purpose of this company, things that are buried underground. This is interesting because I don't think there are too many psychological horror books that take place at just like one company, or I think those are themes more typical for mystery thrillers or sci-fis, so I'll be interested to see how this one goes. The next one is a horror mystery thriller, and it is called How to Survive a Horror Story by Mallory Arnold. I did read this book already and I gave you my thoughts on it, and honestly I really enjoyed it. It follows a group of people that have been invited to the reading of a will, and the person to die is a famous horror writer. Everybody that was invited to the mansion for the reading of the will doesn't quite understand why they have been invited, because they didn't have the best relationship with the deceased. Once they get to the manor and they start having dinner, they are told the rules to get access to the will, to get access to everything this person owned, and that is that they have to play a game. They are locked in this manor, and in order to go from room to room and escape, they have to solve a riddle. If they don't solve the riddle in time, there will be consequences, and the consequences are deadly. So this is basically a murder mystery in a locked location, and I thought it was a lot of fun. It's told through multiple POVs, so if you like that kind of stuff, I do recommend it. We're going back to YA for a little bit. We have YA horror fantasy, and the book is called Predatory Natures by Amy Goldsmith. We follow a teenager whose dream job is to work in a very specific train, and she gets that job and she's really excited until she discovers the cargo that that train is transporting. They have a greenhouse inside as a cargo, but this greenhouse is not normal. There's something wrong with it. Lara was so excited because she was desperate to get away. She really wanted to have this job and travel on the train and go on an adventure. But now that she knows what the cargo is, she's a little bit scared. They claim that the plans and, these greenhouse that they are transporting is for research, but we all know there's probably something more to it. And those plans are kind of whispering to Lara in her dreams. The next book is adult fantasy, so it's not horror or thriller, but I wanted to mention it because I did have this in pre-order and I am excited about this one. It's also book 2 on a series, and it's called Ascension by S.D. Gibson. This is from the Summoner's Circle series, and the first book was called Evocation, which is I still have not read. I did read the prequel, which is a thin novella, so I'm ready for Evocation, but I still have not had the time. So if you loved Evocation or you love S.D. Gibson, this is just to let you know that Ascension, the second book on the series, is coming out. Going back to our regular program, we have yet another adult psychological horror, and this one is called The Shadow Family by C.K. Morris. After a kidnapping goes wrong, Olivia loses one of her legs, and everybody in town calls her One Leg Olivia. She is desperate to finish school and leave because she cannot be here anymore in this place with these people. And then one of her lost cousins shows up, and she offers her $25,000 to attend her birthday party, so it's obviously a no-brainer, and Olivia decides to go. But of course, what starts as a possible opportunity for a better future ends up in a nightmare where Olivia will have to fight for her life and to survive. The next one is a horror western, and it is called The Unkillable Frank Lightning by Josh Rowntree. This is kind of a reimagining of Frankenstein, but in the Wild Wild West, which I think is a very, very interesting take. We're in the 1800s, and we follow Catherine, that is a doctor, an occultist, and a strange woman. And when her husband is killed, he was a private, and he was killed. She decides that, she cannot cope with this loss, so she comes up with a plan to resurrect him. Resurrection has never gone right, not even once. No book, no movie, it just doesn't work. Stop it. This is going to be very interesting because I think it's going to be very interesting to reimagine Frankenstein's creature, but in the Wild Wild West with the lack of technology that they had and all of that. So I'm really curious to see how she manages to bring this guy back to life. Next we have another horror book, and it is called Dropshipped by Stephanie Sanders Jacob. Alex has no goals for his career, nothing to do really with his life, so he decides to do some drop shipping. He never sees the product or the warehouses or anything like that. He just gets the orders, processes the money, and that's it. Mary is a lonely middle-aged mother that contacts him and complains about an order that she placed, and he thinks that he can get rid of customers fairly easy and complaints very easy. However, she ends up showing up at his door. And not only that, but she came up with something that she received shipped to her, which is the remains of a monster. So they are now trying to figure out who shipped it, what was this monster, and how to stop this company or whatever it is that is shipping monsters to people. So it sounds a little bit bonkers, not gonna lie to you, but also kind of fun. it also has a kind of like a modern take on horror, obviously, because we have the drop shipping thing. And I've always thought these companies, you know, there has to be something shady about them, because they always picture everything too good to be true, and we all know better. We horror people, we know better. The next one is a horror fantasy historical fiction, and it is called The Bewitching by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are really looking forward to this one. Unfortunately, I've only read Mexican Gothic by the author so far, but I really want to read other books by the author because I really did enjoy that kind of take on Dracula. I thought it was a really great, like, top tier Gothic story. This is a multi-generational horror story in which we follow 3 women in different parts of the world in different times that encounter witchcraft. I really love this. I really love when a book gives you the perspective of 3 different people that are from a different generation, from a different era, that live in a different country and kind of encounter the same thing, that being vampires, witchcraft, because it offers the possibility to give the reader such different take on witches depending on the era and who is encountering them. And this one promises to be very, very atmospheric as well, same as Mexican Gothic was. And I've been really craving to find a really good book about witches because most of them are satisfying, but I haven't really found many books about witches that have really been like 5-star ratings for me, so hopefully this one will make it. The next book is horror cyberpunk, and it is called Basilisk by Matt Wixie. Alex is a hacker, but she is an ethical hacker. She prefers questions to answers, and one day she and her friends discover a game that seems to be very weird, and it was created by a shadowy figure known as the Hellsman. So obviously they need to try this. Basically, the game takes them to solve very bizarre puzzles in order to get information. However, Jay, her friend, disappears. So Alex is left alone to figure out what happened to her friend and what is, you know, at the very bottom of this game. She's going to have to solve the final puzzle all by herself. We're going now to horror sci-fi, and our next book is called One Yellow Eye by Lee Radford. So this is supposed to put a spin on the zombie genre, and we follow a scientist that is trying to find a cure for it, for the virus. So interesting, you know, take maybe on zombies. I know zombies have been overdone, but there's still good stories out there. We follow Kesta Shelley. She is British, and all her life she has felt more comfortable with science than with people. Now there is a virus spreading throughout London, and her best friend is one of the last people to get infected, and she is determined to figure out how to stop this. The government has kind of gotten rid of all the infected, disposed of them, but Kesta has kept her husband alive, and she's going to use him obviously as a subject in order to figure out how to fix this virus. She's spending her days trying to figure this out, so her colleagues and everybody starts to realize that there's something wrong with her. She's tired, she looks different, you know, and she is kind of fighting against the clock because she needs to find the cure to the virus before everybody notices and figures out what she's actually hiding. So I guess this is a zombie take, but kind of more from the scientific point of view, which I always think is very interesting because most zombie or virus movies, you know, the virus is introduced in the first 10 minutes of the movie most of the time. It spreads out and that's it. And we don't really get to dig deeper into a possible cure. We're going now to a horror mystery thriller, and it's called Girl in the Creek by Wendy N. Wagner. Clackamas National Forest has always been a home to all evil, human and alien. There is abandoned mines, and they shelter sometimes even serial killers. There is also a hotel in ruins in the outskirts of Faraday, Oregon, and our main character decides to go there to Faraday actually because her brother went missing, and she wants to know what happened to him in this very particular place. We follow Erin Harper. She is a freelancer writer, and she decides to travel there to the forest, to this place, to this town, because that is the last place that her brother was seen alive. She realizes that a lot more people have went missing in that same place. So maybe run, I don't know. Most times when you get to a small town and you see all of these missing posters everywhere, that might be a sign for you to leave, you know, to go. So yeah, I think this is interesting. I always love as well when we have this type of mysteries. And it also opens the question to what happened to the missing people. You know, is it something supernatural? Is this human evil? Is it alien evil in this book? We don't know. Our next adult horror book, it's called House of Beth by Carrie Cullen. Cassie just had a really bad breakup. There was also an incident at work, so she decides to retreat back to her hometown where she reconnects also with Erin, who was one of her best friends. So basically Cassie is no longer the girly New York with the fancy job. She has kind of adapted now to the world of a small town. But Cassie's fresh start is anything but peaceful. She is living now in this isolated cabin, trying to, you know, get back on her feet. When she starts to realize that there seems to be something in that house with her, she starts to hear things, see things. So this is a little bit of speculative fiction. It also has like a gothic take on it as well. And they say it's perfect for people that love Bunny by Mona Awad, which that book is bonkers. Crazy. I think it's one of those books that when you finish you're like, what the hell did I read? But I also loved it. So if you love that book, maybe this is one that you want to pick up. Our next adult horror book is called Dumort by Michelle Tang. Mina doesn't fit with the rest of the noble women that she knows that are in the same city. She never really resonated with them. So now also there's something attached to her, something connected to her, something maybe supernatural, and it is weighing on her. Desperate for help, Mina decides to go talk to an occultist called Alexander Dumort. But Dumort also has enemies, so Mina doesn't know if now her condition is going to be worse or the solution, because maybe finding the truth, finding a solution is going to be much worse than living with what she already knows. The next one is a book that I'm actually really excited about because you guys know I can never get enough vampire stories. And these are short stories about vampires, but I love the kind of perspective that they've given to this short story compilation because the name is Vampire Hunters, an incomplete collection of personal accounts. So it seems to be different authors and they're all writing stories about people that have had real encounters with vampires, with the cold ones. And everybody has been always fascinated about vampires. There's something, I don't know, that attracts us to vampires. Is it immortality? Is it the blood? There's something about it, and we've all been like loving to read different types of literature, journals, things about vampires. So I think it's really interesting now if these stories are giving you the perspective of making it a little bit more realistic, you know, making like real encounters with vampires. So needless to say, I need to get this book. The next one is also a short horror story compilation, and this one is called The Exchange and Other Calamities by Mallory McCartney. So these are all written by the same author, and these are 5 different horror stories. And this horror story compilation is inspired by real events, and those always tend to be a little bit more creepy because it's things that you can really relate to. The next one is a horror thriller with ghosts, and it is called It Was Her House First by Sherry Priest. Silent film star Benita, you know, is a ghost, and she's been kind of hunting her house for a very long time. And for some time there was a detective living there that had to deal with all of her rage and all of that, because obviously when you're recently deceased you're a little bit more pissed off probably, and maybe with time you get a little bit more mellow. Now the house belongs to somebody else, Ronnie Mitchell, who is a woman that decides to get this house to renovate it, and she has no idea about the house past and the things that have transpired in this house and the ghost that it comes with. So I'm guessing, you know, trying to renovate a house that is haunted is not going to be as easy peasy as she thought. I think she bought the house on a whim without really knowing much about it or even seeing it, just thinking, you know, okay, I can go and renovate it. Most of these like empty houses that have been empty for so long and need a lot of renovation, sometimes just look into the history of the place. You never know what might have happened there. Maybe outweigh, you know, the risk of getting something so cheap. Ooh, the next one I'm so excited about. It's an adult mystery thriller and I am dying to get this. I did pre-order it, but because it's coming out towards the end of the month of July, I think I'm gonna have to wait for August to read it. And that is Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. You guys know I've read so far all of the books that Holly Jackson has published and I've really enjoyed them. All her books have been so far YA, and this is her first adult novel. I know she's been dying to make an adult novel because she wanted to use the C word, and she did tell me that the C word is in this book indeed, and she feels very good on how she used it. She says it's like it has impact and is all that she ever wanted. So I'm really happy for her. Jet is the daughter of a very wealthy family. She's 27 years old, but she has no rush with her life because she thinks she's young. She has time to do everything she wants to do, but sometimes life is not that merciful. One Halloween night, Jet gets attacked by an unknown person, and she gets so badly beaten up that she ends up in the hospital in very critical condition. Basically, she has a deadly condition because her head was so damaged that she has a brain aneurysm, so it's only a matter of time before she passes. They tell her that she has probably 7 days tops before she dies, basically, which is quite a heavy thing to say to a 27-year-old healthy woman. And she is determined before she dies to find out who killed her. And she starts to think about everybody in her life. She never had enemies, so who could be behind this? We're going now to horror gothic, and the next book is called Mayra by Nikki Gonzalez. It's been many years since Ingrid last heard from her childhood friend Mayra, and one day out of the blue, Mayra calls her and tells her, you know, let's get a weekend getaway together, catch up, and Ingrid doesn't even think twice, she just accepts. From the moment Ingrid leaves her house, there is many things that are warnings, red flags. She loses her cell connection. There is a swamp that threatens to almost kill her, but in the end she does make it to the house. She finds Mayra and she feels like Mayra has not changed. They reconnect immediately, they're besties again, but we all know this is not gonna end up well. Indoors and on the grounds of the house, of Mayra's house, Ingrid starts to realize that the rooms are changing, space is not what it seems, so it kind of seems like one of those books like House of Leaves or We Used to Live Here, where the inside of a place is not exactly what it looks like. The next book is adult horror and it's called Negative Images by Rebecca Shear Akamelu. Anita is still recovering from the sudden death and loss of her husband, and she is not only being hunted by grief but also by his negative image. This is a new phenomenon where the deceased prey on the loved ones that they had with them in life. Anita becomes very, very desperate to sever the bond between her and her tormentor, which is none other than her deceased husband. Apparently this is a phenomenon that is going off throughout the country as well, so people are being hunted by their loved deceased ones, which it has to be such a horrifying thing and psychologically such a hard thing to go through because you are still grieving the loss of that person, but now that person has become your enemy and it's coming for you. So this kind of goes deeper into the psychological horror of grief and your deceased ones. The next book is the only middle grade book that I have here, and it's middle grade horror, but I wanted to mention this one because this author has not written middle grade before, and that is Paul Tremblay. The book is called Another, and you guys know I really enjoy Paul Tremblay's books, so I'm excited to see what he does with the middle grade. When Casey Wilson's parents tell him that one of his best friends is coming over for a sleepover, Casey is like, what do you mean? Because after a Zoom incident, he became a pariah, he has no friends, so who is coming over? And then Moral appears. Moral is not like any other friend that Cassie has had or has ever met. His face looks like clay, pale, something is really wrong obviously with this kid, and now he has to have a sleepover with him. So what the hell is Moral? Who is this thing? What is this thing? We're going now to horror, fantasy, dark academia, and we have a book called The Library at Hellebore by Cassandra Caw. Now, I have not read anything by this author before, but I have always been intrigued because people have been either loving it or hating it, so I really want to know what I fall. So let me read this to you. The Hellebore Technical Institute for the Gifted is the premier academy for the dangerously, the Antichrist, and the Ragnaroks, the world eaters and apocalypse makers. Seems like a dangerous place to be. This school promises redemption, acceptance, and a better life after graduation. At least that is what Alessa is told when she's kidnapped and brought to the school. But there's a lot more to this school, of course, than meets the eye. On graduation day, there is something that is killing the classmates, and only Alessa and a couple of others are able to survive. They are trapped in the school library and they have to offer a human sacrifice every night if they want to survive. So, sounds like fun. Our next book is horror fiction and it's called Red Rabbit Ghost by Jen Julian. The town of Blacknod is not what it appears, and Jesse used to live there when he was a kid, but he does not live there anymore. Jesse's mother was found dead 18 years earlier at the side of the river in this same town, and there is no explanation to what happened to her. Now Jesse is starting to receive anonymous messages promising him information about what actually happened to his mom, so he's now forced to return to Blacknode to find out. But of course the locals are not happy that Jesse's kind of investigating the place, investigating them. So I always find very eerie when someone goes to a town and you seem to be the outcast, the enemy of everybody, even if you were born there. And there's always something eerie about all of the neighbors and everybody knowing your business. Our next book is a horror novella, and this one is called We Who Hunt Alexanders by Jason Sanford. Amelia is a reaper, so basically she feeds on people that are violent, that are bad people. So in paper, it seems like a good job to have. But Amelia is different because she can feel things that others cannot. Other monsters cannot feel happiness or sadness, but she can. Amelia has now to hunt on her own, which is something she's not really used to, and she's now in a place where people are very violent, so she's in a very dangerous position right now, even though she's the hunter, but she can also be the hunted. We have another horror novella that I wanted to mention because it sounded very weird, and that is Toadhead, a horror story by Andrew Leal. On the first anniversary of his mother's death, Teddy woke up at the cemetery. He didn't know how he got there or how his hands got dirty. He also woke up with something in his head, and as you can assume, it is a toad. This toad could not be removed, and on top of that, it demanded to be fed. So it sounds really weird, and I kind of dig the idea. Next we have a YA horror book, and it's called No Such Thing as Ghosts by SFL Jefferies. It's Lila's first day at a new school, at a new town, in a new state. It's a lot at once. She had to move there after her mom passed away, but everything she wants to do, Lila just really wants to go back home because this new school in a new town, in a new state, is also in a different country, so she's having trouble to accept the idea. She's also really scared because she knows that her mom had a gift, a talent, which is that she could see the ghost, and she's kind of scared that she's going to inherit that now. One of her friends goes missing in this new place, and she realizes that the only way that she can try to figure out what happened is if she embraces her gift, her power, and she tries to connect with the ghosts. Our next book is a mystery thriller called We Won't All Survive by Kate Alice Marshall. 2 years ago, Mercy saved the lives of a lot of people in a shooting that took place in a mall, but of course she also has scars from it because she was also injured during that massacre. A billionaire NTV host wants to recruit Mercy to play a game in order to win a cash prize. And Mercy is like, well, if I win the money, I can actually send my sister to college. Of course, when they get to set and the other contestants are there, they realize there's something weird in this place, the set seems to be too empty, and then the contestants start to die. So, we've seen this done before, but it's a concept that I really enjoy, so I wouldn't mind reading another book about it. Our next book is a mystery thriller paranormal, and it's called Asylum Hotel by Juliet Blackwell. Aubrey loves to photograph abandoned places that basically look haunted, right? And she is taking pictures of this abandoned hotel that has a very, very dark history. Back in the 1920s, the hotel was filled with stars and A-list people, but the rumor started that the hotel was haunted by 2 girls that died there, and after that they had to close it. Aubrey decides to go and photograph the place before it's being kind of renovated, because it's closed now before it gets renovated, so she wants to get there before that happens. There is another guy on the side, another guy that she meets that is also very interested in old buildings and photographing them, and the next day that guy is dead. People in town tell Aubrey that if you get too close to the hotel, you might get killed. That is something that everybody knows, and you should be very careful around this place. So yeah, we have a possible haunted hotel, haunted by ghosts, and I'm guessing Aubrey is just going to be too curious and she's going to have to know what happened in that place. And last but not least, I wanted to mention a book that is actually for kids, but it is just so cute, and if you have kids or if you know people that have kids and are looking for a present, I think this is really cute. I think it's for ages baby to 3 years, and it's called Elvira's First Book of Monsters, obviously by Elvira. I love Elvira, and when I saw this cover and this book, I was like, that is so cute. I do follow her on Instagram, so that's how I came across this book, and I'm like, I need to add it to my list, even though I know it's for little kids. It's basically a book to introduce young readers to their spooky friends. Like, what more can you want from a book for kids? So I think this is going to be a great present for your kids, for your sister's kids, for, I don't know, family kids. So yeah, I would buy this one myself. Actually, that was not the last book. Sorry, my mistake. I have 2 more books for you. The next one is a horror gothic, and it's called The Neat Fire by M.K. Hardy. This is a Scottish Sapphic gothic horror, so tell me more. Nora wants to flee her mistakes in Glasgow, so she decides to accept an arranged marriage. A marriage of convenience, basically. And she goes to the house of her new husband. And when she gets there, things are not exactly like she expected. The man that she met through letters was warm, and the person that she meets is kind of cold-hearted. But now she's there and she has no other choice. Since getting there and finding out that this husband is not exactly what she had in mind, and a lot of weird things happening around her, the only other person that she can kind of trust or turn to or even have a proper relationship with is Agnes, the housekeeper. I'm guessing, you know, she's going to have to learn what actually is going on in this place, the house, the husband, and because it's Sapphic, I'm guessing probably she's gonna have something with Agnes, the housekeeper. That's what I would assume. So this is supposed to be kind of like a retelling in a way of Rebecca, or for people that love Rebecca. So if you love that book, maybe this is one that you want to get. And last but not least, I have one last thing, which is a horror novella, and it is called The Flowers at Flood House by J.J. Walker. Flood House was supposed to be a fresh start. Seth wants to move there with his mom because his mom has dementia, so he wants to take care of her. And when they move there and start living there, he realizes that there are some dried flowers hanging that he didn't hang. Things are changing inside of this house. This is supposed to be a horror novella that gives a twist, a spin on the haunted house stories, and I think it's going to be very interesting. I know some people don't like horror that includes old people or people with dementia and this kind of stuff, so I would understand if it's not for everybody, but I think it's a very interesting topic. There was a movie called Relic that I watched twice that kind of touches on that topic as well, of 2 daughters taking care of their mom that has dementia, and I thought that movie was really good. So it's a topic that I don't mind kind of getting into. So this is also a novella, which is great for when you just need a quick read. Alright, you guys, so those were all the books. I've been sitting here for over an hour just yapping. So I hope that you found something in this list that you would like to give a chance to, or something that maybe you forgot was coming out. There's a couple of books here that obviously I'm really excited about, specifically obviously the new Holly Jackson book, which I have been dying to get my hands into. I did order a copy from Waterstone, so as soon as I have my copy I will read it, but because it's coming out towards the end of July, I'm not expecting to have time until August, but it's going to be a great birthday present to me because August is my birthday month, so I get to read the new Holly Jackson book. Let me know down below if there is any other books that are coming out in July that I did not mention, that are thrillers or horror or books that you think I will enjoy that I have not mentioned. Thank you guys as always so much for watching. I really appreciate all of your support, and I hope to see you all as always in our next coffee time. Bye!